Hello and welcome to another episode of the CIRS Group podcast. I'm Jacie,
And I'm Barbara.
and today we are going to talk about some of our favorite adjunct therapies. Therapies, things we do,
Supportive
supportive
healing things in addition to the
practices.
Shoemaker protocol.
Yeah, some of our favorites, some
Yeah.
of the ones we love the most. As always, before we jump into the episode, none of this is medical advice. Definitely consult with your practitioner if you are considering incorporating any of these and you have questions. But I think we can jump right in.
Yeah, let's do it. First, that sorry. First, let's dig into nutrition. Now, we have done not just one, but I think at least two, if not multiple episodes on how to eat as a CIRS patient. So we will link those. Go check those out for more. But the main goal with the way that you eat as a CIRS patient is to be anti-inflammatory. That can mean different things for different people, but the goal is to lower the inflammation in your body so that overall your immune system can chill out, because that is what CIRS do, is the opposite of that, opposite of chill.
So for me, that looks like carnivore plus some carbs because I'm also hypometabolic, which means it's hard for my body to convert protein into glucose. Your body does need glucose. But as Barbara said, this can mean different things for different people. Kind of across the board, they recommend low amylose, and for a certain part of the protocol, they recommend gluten-free. Do you want to talk more about that?
Yeah, something that I found helpful is getting tested for anti-gliadin antibodies. Do you say anti-gliadin or just say gliadin antibodies? Because
Anti-gliadin antibodies.
okay, there's two antis. That seemed redundant, but
They
that's
don't they don't cancel each other out. It's not
yeah.
gliadin bodies.
Yeah. Gliadin bodies. So, yeah, you do want to get that. I mean, look, I know we're all trying to like chill on all the crazy amounts of blood work, and blood work can still be expensive even if it's mostly covered by insurance. So all that said, if you have GI issues or if you have GI pain and you are eating gluten, even though Dr. Shoemaker himself says don't do it, it might be a good idea to get that tested and then see what those numbers are. For me, that was good because it gave me the motivation I needed to cut gluten. I was not going to willingly cut it. Yes, I eat mostly carnivore. I lean meat based, all the things, right? But I do love myself a Chipotle steak burrito, and I would have those every now and then, and they would not make my stomach feel super great. In some good news, I had a Chipotle steak burrito bowl right before we're filming this, and I feel just fine. So that's kind of cool. So anyway, my anti-gliadin antibodies were a little high last time I had my blood work done, and I am conducting this experiment now, completely cutting gluten, absolutely all traces of it, and then retesting in a few weeks. So I'll let you know how that goes, but it was great motivation for me to cut that out, and I do feel better, unfortunately.
And kind of to that point, I think it's important when you're looking at your nutrition to build in loves as much as you can. When I do consults for nutrition, this is like a piece of the puzzle that we're putting together when we're building someone's nutritional plan. And it's like what thing you love can you get away with? And how can you incorporate it regularly? And I think that's so important to still have that kind of connection of joy with your diet as much as you can. I know a lot of people are super reactive, but like if you love salmon, incorporate salmon. If like figure out what fits your dietary parameters and then eat the thing you love the most within those parameters frequently. And I think that's so motivating because it feels less restrictive. You know, for me, when I started carnivore, I ate bacon every day and I made a point of eating bacon every day because it's one of my favorite foods and it fits within that constraint. So I definitely recommend doing that. I think it's super helpful to keep you adherent to what is going to keep you satisfied and support your health.
Yeah. And to that point, I know dairy really should be off my list as well, but I appreciate that my CIRS doctor said, let's definitely do no gluten. Let's try to do no dairy. But if you eat some ice cream, I'd rather you eat ice cream than a slice of pizza. or whatever. So, which is both, by the way. By the way, all of my favorite foods, like my actual favorites, have both gluten and dairy. Just for the record, that's why earlier I said, unfortunately, I feel better. Everyone else is like, oh, shouldn't you be happy? No, I'm not. I wanted to feel just as bad. No, but point being, yeah, if you are feeling restricted, if you can find those little cheats that don't hurt as much, that's one way of mitigating it. If you can handle it, mentally and emotionally. I know some people, they have a little bit of ice cream, they want to eat all of the ice cream. So you know yourself best. Do what works best for you. And of course, as you're going through that and you feel restricted, just remember this is an investment in your healing. I know for me, with what I have coming up health-wise, that kind of feels like a milestone in my head. Like, okay, let me just get to that date. I can do anything until that date, right? And so that can help you, feel like the restriction is temporary, even if you know it's probably going to have to last longer than that, helps you get through it and feel better in the process. And sometimes when you feel better, you start to realize how worth the sacrifice is.
One of my favorite things is electrolytes. Like, I think I like them more than your average person. I really like them so much. They're so easy to add into whatever you're already doing. And for you, it might be a big lever. We know that a lot of CIRS patients have ADH osmolality dysregulation, and so taking electrolytes can help with that a lot. It can improve your urination overnight so you can sleep through the night. It might make you feel more energetic throughout the day. You can buy these like LMNT. I always say LMNT. I know it's element. I know it's element, and I'm going to continue saying LMNT.
Totally fine.
Redmond's also makes electrolytes in a pill form, which I know Barbara takes so that she
Mhm.
doesn't even have to taste them. Personally, I'm cheap AF. So LMNT, gonna keep, it's happening. We're just gonna go
It's
with it.
fine.
They actually post their recipe on their website. And so I just make my own. It's 1 teaspoon of salt. I use Redmond real salt. And then it's half a teaspoon of magnesium. I use magnesium malate. And then a quarter teaspoon of potassium chloride. That's the recipe.
Boom. Per
You,
drink.
yeah,
That's a per drink thing, right? Or
per
per,
drink.
yeah. Cool.
Yeah, and general recommendation would be like one a day. If you want to be on my level, you would do like five.
There you
I
go.
drink a lot of electrolytes. I just like salty water. What can I say?
Yeah. No, I support you on that. I do like the flavored electrolytes, and Relight or Redmond's has like flavored powders that you can go that direction too. You have to be worried about the citric acid potentially if you react poorly to that. And then there was some controversy about Elements sweetener at one point as well. So again, just know yourself and what you can do. Or if you want to save money and be smart about it, do what Jacie does. And you can put whatever friggin' flavor in that water. You can put that in any drink, by the way. It doesn't have to be water. So,
Yeah, the
yeah.
elementary recipes actually say like if you want raspberry, you would add like however many crushed raspberries.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. This next one's a little bit, something I'm dealing with now is supplements. And I don't just mean supplements in general, I mean specific to what you are deficient in. So this does involve asking your doctor to check, and hopefully your doctor's thinking to check. Mine did. I love her. And she chose to check, my iron levels and but also ferritin. We were also a little worried about my D levels. And then I had gotten a B12 injection and felt so good the next day. Like energy like I haven't had in years and years and years. So I told her about that and she's like, "Let's check what your levels are." And so ferritin, D, and B12 were all low despite the way I eat, which is lots of red meat, by the way, and also despite supplementing, which I had been on D and B12. I also found out from the tick-borne specialist that I am working with that those three things are used very fast in tick-borne patients. It's almost like gas in the car, and the car is not fuel efficient. And so you're just racing through those three things. So if those three things are low, by the way, my other iron levels were high or normal. So ferritin was specifically low. All of I do now supplement all of those, and I do feel better since I have done that. So again, I wouldn't have known if we hadn't done the blood work to check. And so I would definitely talk to your doctor before you change or add any of those supplements for yourself, but I think it is worth checking at least once to see how it is, and then maybe rechecking after you've been supplementing to see if you've supplemented enough.
And the one supplement I really like is NAC or N-acetylcysteine. You can also take resveratrol if you don't tolerate NAC. I really like that because one, as I mentioned before, I'm hypometabolic, so it does help clear lactic acid, but also it's super helpful for people who are spike protein injured. So if you think that COVID or the COVID jabbity jab, can we say this yet?
I think so.
Anyway, either of those things you might find that helpful as well. And I take 1,000 milligram a day. Another thing I love is getting sunshine. You can also incorporate this with grounding if that feels good to you. There's a lot of direct benefits from that, but it's also, for me, it's a form of limbic retraining is spending time in nature. And so, like, if you're not someone who's able to tolerate a lot of sunshine, I know some people get histamine reactions, and one thing you can try is building a solar callus by going out in early morning, late evening, so it's not as direct of sunlight. Side note. But if you're not someone who can go outside, experiencing the sounds and sights of nature can still be helpful. So if you can find like YouTube videos and stuff like that, that might be another way to access it until you're able to experience the real thing. For sunshine, and if you want to try and get vitamin D from the source, the OG, the sun, one app I really recommend is D-Minder. It'll tell you the UV index for where you are and when you'll be able to get UV exposure. So one, you can kind of mitigate being out there at the highest levels, but also it helps you track how much vitamin D you might actually be getting from that sun exposure.
Yeah. And a really cool tip that Dr. Kellen Maloney let me know about was to help with like circadian rhythm and all of that. You don't necessarily need to go out and see the sunrise. That was for me. That's just for me because I am not a morning person. I am not going to see anybody's sunrise unless I really, really need to. So her suggestion was to just go out and look, just be out in the sun whenever you do wake up. Let that be one of the first sources of light that hit your eyes if you can. Thankfully, my dog needs to pee in the morning, so I get to take Django out and kill two birds with one stone. She also suggested, similar to what you just said, Jacie, going and seeing like the sunset. If you know, if you're not a morning person, you can see the sunset. If you are a morning person, then maybe focus on the sunrise. But either way, I get to go out and make sure I see the sunset, which also works for Django's schedule because that's about the time where the heat is finally low enough in Las Vegas that I can safely take him out again to pee. And then we get a little red light therapy in the process because that's what the sunset is. So that's really nice. And then, of course, if, you know, to your point, also getting that midday sun is also really good. It just helps your body see that true passage of time, how the sun is moving in the sky. And that will kind of get your body, you know, to wake up when it needs to be woken up and also to start winding down when it needs to wind down. So I've been doing that the last couple weeks and it does feel really good.
Next step is some way to support detoxing. So I think most people would do this through a sauna. The saunas are really favored in the CIRS community, and I understand why. It just helps you detox all of that grossness out of your body. I don't tolerate saunas well. Like, I don't tolerate dry heat well. So, one alternative you can do if you're like me and you don't really sweat naturally is to take hot baths because you're exposing yourself to the water, which would be like a alternative to the sweat, which helps you cool down as you're heating up. I don't know the science behind it clearly, but like, it's just like a tip if you don't tolerate saunas, hot baths have been really helpful for me.
Yeah. Either way, they feel good. Hot baths and for me, sauna as well. A big piece for me, and I think I've mentioned this lots of times now, is therapy. You know, I did have trauma growing up, and I know that for most people, the going through CIRS treatment or finding it, really the difficulty in even finding out about CIRS to begin with, and all the other specialists that I'm sure most of you have seen before you even knew about CIRS, that is trauma as well. And so it can be so helpful to work with a therapist who is trauma informed, specifically medical trauma informed, ideally. And the absolute best, of course, is if they are CIRS informed on top of all of the other things. So if you can find that, that's great. We do have some fantastic therapists in the community, and I will link them below. Brenda Stewart, Mindy Mastricerio. Mindy is also fantastic. So we do have some CIRS knowledgeable therapists in the community, so you can check them out. But I would love to talk about some of the types of therapy that you might want to look into. I know one that really helped me for my PTSD specifically is called CPT, or cognitive processing therapy. It helps you identify and challenge negative or unhelpful thoughts and beliefs related to your traumatic event. And kind of with that as well as the somatic therapy, where you actually can try to locate and address the physical pain or the physical manifestation of that trauma or that event in your body. And of course, if you're working with a therapist that can handle that and knows about that, is trained in those things, that can be super helpful. So if you're specifically dealing with trauma, those two methods are fantastic. And of course, I should also mention EMDR is also used quite often with trauma. And Brenda Stewart, who I mentioned earlier, she does lead EMDR therapy online even. So that's somebody to look into if you're interested in that specifically.
The therapy that I did mid-CIRS, well, one of the ones I did, it's called IFS or internal family systems. If you are someone who is very resistant to the idea of talking about your trauma consistently, I think this is a good gateway into that. Like, I do think like CBT is going to be helpful for most people, but if it feels like it's too hard to do that right away, one, somatic therapy can be great for that because it focuses more on the body than the experience, but also IFS, which is more about identifying the quote unquote characters that are created in your head as a way of dealing with trauma. So, like, for example, when you're a kid, if you go through a traumatic event, you might get a character that develops in your psyche that's trying to protect you from that experience. And so internal family systems is about identifying those characters and then integrating them. So the talking about the trauma is only in an effort to identify the character, and then you don't talk about it anymore. And so for me, this was super helpful to not have to continuously talk about the experiences that I had, but a way to like kind of skip to the next step, which was like dealing with the effects of it. And that eventually led to me doing more of the CBT kind of therapy where I felt more comfortable talking about the stuff. So I just wanted to mention that as a way some people might want to approach this if it just feels like too much right now to just jump into talking about some of those experiences you had. We also just did a book recommendation episode where we talk about some of the therapy books that were super helpful for us. And we also did an episode with Brenda Stewart, who you already mentioned, one of the CIRS therapists, and Dr. Lauren Sparks. So we'll link that down below if you're interested in learning more. But kind of rolling into the Book Corrects episode, we also mentioned limbic retraining, which is another adjunct therapy that I really enjoy in the CIRS space. And I kind of, it's adjunct, but I kind of feel like all the CIRS patients should do it. Like limbic retraining therapy, CIRS is traumatic, guys. I really think that most of us should attempt these things in order to feel like we're fully healing from CIRS.
Yeah, I think there's just a lot more under the surface that's going on, that we will acknowledge we feel alone in this illness and no one in our family maybe understands or our partner doesn't understand or whatever. There's a lot of situations where you might feel isolated and alone, you might second guess yourself. And so to have a therapist that you pay to see specifically to, especially if you're somebody who like doesn't want to bother someone with their issues and all that stuff. Well, you're paying this person to listen to and help you navigate all of these very complex thoughts and emotions and traumas and everything else that we've talked about. So if that's something I mean, I can't imagine a person if you are working with a good therapist, and I know that's a big if, don't tolerate a bad one. I think we've all had bad therapists. I most certainly have had my share. Leave. You can get up and leave and never see them again if they are bad. But if you find a good one, I think it's so important. And I really do hope that every CIRS patient can make it a priority to see a therapist if you need to, if you feel like that's something that you can handle. And like Jacie said, there are ways of doing it that are less like talk about your trauma. And with CPT, what I mentioned earlier, my therapist was able to kind of warn me, okay, week 4, I think it was, we're gonna we're gonna really dig into your trauma. And so we were kind of able to even like time that appropriately and like just like that's when it was gonna happen and it sucked. But then we were able to move on and not really talk about it again. So there are definitely ways that a therapist can support learning about your issues and learning about what happened to you to whatever extent they need to, but then moving on from it. So even if you are using some of these other methodologies, just work with a trauma-informed therapist and they should be informed on how to handle and help you as best they can.
And if they're not, leave.
Yep.
So, just a brief note on limbic retraining, which is kind of in tandem with therapy. When you are in a chronically ill state, your brain is kind of super malleable. It's inflamed and malleable. And so, what can happen over time is you rewire to this chronic illness state. Like your brain pathways actually rewire. And so at some point in your CIRS journey, you might want to address that. For me, it popped up. I was 6 months into CIRS treatment, doing really well, got bad news about a friend, had an autoimmune flare, and it was my first time having an autoimmune flare since, starting CIRS treatment. So it was the first time for me that it clicked that, oh, if I feel bad, my body can be impacted by that. And so limbic retraining is ultimately what helped me with that. There's a huge range of things you can do for limbic retraining, and I think we've done a couple episodes on this, so we'll try to link one down below. But you can do anything from the Joy Plan, which go listen to the book Rex podcast. I'll say more things about it there, to DNRS, which is like the big guns, super intense, spend an hour a day, read a wall of text. But you just got to find what resonates with you and what's accessible for you because for a lot of CIRS patients, like the thought of doing DNRS is like, oh, well, I can't do it, so I'm not going to do it at all. Like, no, you can find small things, little things
Yeah.
that you could do in the meantime until you feel like you have the bandwidth for something bigger.
Even just a quick three three things you're thankful for every day in a journal before you go to sleep. Like that's limbic retraining to an extent. So that's just one concrete example of like the level of like this is really taxing and takes a lot versus okay, that I can do. I can spend like literally minute and a half maybe, depending on how fast you write, to think of those things that you're thankful for. And then of course a ton of options in between too.
And there's this app I really like, and it's basically just that every morning you wake up and set intentions for the day, and every night before bed you say what you were grateful for. I can't find it like just immediately. I haven't used it in a little while, but we can definitely link that one down below too.
And I think we touched on this in the therapy section a bit, but connection. Connection is also one of our, I mean, I know Jacie and I have said it, but I don't think either of us would have gotten through CIRS treatment without each other. So very thankful that we were diagnosed at the same time. Obviously, didn't we wouldn't want either of us to be diagnosed, but since we are, we're glad it was together and at the same time. But find those positive relationships in your life. So even if your spouse isn't supportive, maybe your cousin is, maybe an aunt is, maybe someone, maybe your best friend is. There's somebody in your life that is supportive. Don't try to win over the skeptics. Focus your love and energy on the people who do support you and understand and believe you.
Another connection piece that I found really healing, especially when I was really sick. So I am naturally an introvert, and when I am not doing well, I isolate. And so it's harder for me to maintain those relationships and connections. Thank goodness Barbara is more extroverted because she reaches out. But even when I was unable to connect with the people around me, or it felt really high effort to do so, it just took a lot of bandwidth. I always found that like connecting with an animal was an accessible way to do that because they don't really require communication from you in the same way. It's just like they'll sit with you, they'll let you touch them kind of a thing.
Yeah.
So I don't know, my dogs have been so helpful in my own healing journey. So I don't think we could do this episode without mentioning them.
No, not at all. Yeah, I won't talk about all the dogs that have helped me or else I will start crying, but yeah, I'm gonna cry anyway. But yes, animals are very important.
They really
I'm just
are.
gonna stop talking.
And I know that some people out there just feel so isolated and they don't feel like they can have those connections in their life or with physical people around them. And so, one thing you can look to is joining a community like the CIRS group. There's a lot of communities out there. CIRS Lab is a great one. Melanie Pensack has one for meditation with CIRS. Morgan Gladowski has one for people who want to explore breath work. Jenny Johnson, one of the OG CIRS coach, has one. There are lots of communities out there. Just find the one that resonates with you. And you kind of have this built-in support system of people who get it. You don't have to explain CIRS to them. You don't have to explain why you're having trouble finding words. You don't have to explain why you're crying about not being able to eat your favorite food anymore. So we can't recommend that one enough.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll link all of our amazing friends and colleagues in the CIRS community that run their own communities. We'll link to all of them. We want you to check them all out, find the one that is the best fit for you. They're all going to have a little different flavor, and we're all different. So find the one that you love the most and make some friends. Meet up with them in person if you can. If there's some members that are in your area, definitely encourage that. So, yeah, absolutely.
Wait, what flavor do you think we are? Are we like butter pecan, rum, raisin,
Mm.
pistachio? I'm naming all the like old lady flavors because they are my favorite.
Yeah. We're the opposite of, well, no, I shouldn't say we're the opposite of old lady flavors. So
I
that's
would say
definitely not
mint
true.
chocolate chip, except you don't like that
I
one.
hate it with all my
Cookie dough?
heart. I could do cookie dough.
We could be cookie dough.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you guys let us know in the comments if there's a flavor you think we are. We've asked this before. 100% we have asked this before because I remember reading comments about, I think you're this flavor or whatever people were writing.
Okay, maybe I just want an updated poll.
Okay, update us on the latest flavor that we are. Maybe you and I are different flavors. That way you can still be mint chocolate chip.
Well, now
And I
I'm
will.
biasing them.
Okay.
Okay, anyway, for more resources and support and conversations about ice cream flavors, you can join us over at thesourcegroup.com.
We'll see you there.